Well, thank you again. It's meaningful, AlohaCare's sponsorship. You've been personally engaged in a lot of ways for some time, and we appreciate it. Tell us first, when you go to the office, what is it that is like, fires you up, that commands your attention, the thing that when you get to the office, you're really excited to sink your teeth into?
Well, I guess this week I'm running on a little nervous energy with the RFP outcome coming on Friday. Everyone take a deep breath. Okay. Yeah. No, aside from that just being a sort of a dominant moment, I think this week, really I think it's the innovation and excitement that's really building within our organization. We spent some time in the last couple of years putting in new tools and groundwork and making sure we had the right team. And there's this exciting new era coming in Medicaid where we feel like our partner, the state, is asking us to innovate more. Instead of telling us these are the 10 things that you need to get done inside your four walls, they're saying here are 10 outcomes we'd like you to achieve. And they're giving us more flexibility to innovate, to create new partnerships, and there's an expectation that we really get care out into the community. And so for those of us who have been talking about partnership and collaboration and really trying to run team-based models, this takes us to a new era where it feels like the regulation is aligning with how we want to be operating the business.
So for folks, many people in this room know about the RFP you're talking about, but why don't you just give us the sort of Cliff Notes version?
Yeah.
What is Medicaid? What does this RFP mean for the incumbents and any potential disruption there? And what is the state asking its MCO partners to deliver upon with more specificity?
Well, if we think about the evolution of managed care and it being, a relatively new concept in our history of healthcare, you started with entities that were very administrative. They were managing a network, they were paying claims. They weren't very engaged with the members they served, other than your traditional customer service. And then we moved into an era of care management, where there was expectations to really engage members and to work on disease management and help those that were experiencing chronic conditions and major episodes of care. And now we're in an era where we're really pushing ahead of that and we're trying to be proactive. And so when you think about the landscape of Medicaid, state governments are expecting that health plans will be conveners, that they will help to understand community needs, to array data and tool sets, to arrange partnerships, to help engage members in healthcare. And that's a very different role than where we started in managed care. And so the RFP process is essentially doing the same thing. If you were used to doing prior RFPs, it'd be like a list of regulations you need to comply with. And you have to show point by point that you have done or can do every single one of these things. Now it's how will you accomplish value-based purchasing?
Yeah.
How will you accomplish raising quality scores? How will you engage members in healthcare? So bigger questions where strategies and innovations are being outlined in the response. So that means the scoring is less clear. Yeah. And it makes everyone a little afraid because we go into a bid, we have 5 health plans, there will be 4 awards, 2 will be statewide, 2 will be Oahu only. And there will definitely be health plans who lose geographies and or contracts in that process. So there's a lot more competition and there's a lot more gray area, right? But that also means there's this excitement for innovation.
Yeah. Let me say this in a way that doesn't jinx anything, because I'm superstitious and I don't want to do that. But it seems to me that the task envisioned by this RFP really places a premium on community engagement and community centeredness. And that seems like, I mean, it doesn't seem, it is baked into AlohaCare and the partnership with CHCs. What would you say are some of the stories coming out of the community health clinics, the FQHCs, that about integration into community that may not be commonly known? Maybe you talk about them in your executive team, maybe you talked about them in your RFP response, but that this audience may not know about.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that being founded by community health centers, and also the majority of our board is composed by community health center leaders, that really gives us this constant feedback from the community. Keeps us grounded in community priorities. And Hawaii is a whole set of communities. We're not just the same throughout the state, right? And so as you listen to those voices and you hear about individual community needs, they vary greatly. And so all of the health centers vary in how they deliver services in their own community. And it's interesting because the health center model really has more integration than a lot of traditional practices do. And part of it has to do with payment. You know, PPS payment is basically a per visit payment. You come to the health center and you get a lot of different kinds of care are available to you for one payment. And that allows the providers to focus more on what you need while you're there instead of worrying about what's billable, right? And so that transformation, which was, you know, gosh, someone in here is going to correct me, but it's at least 15 years ago that we moved to PPS, really gave the health centers an opportunity to do things like behavioral health integration, for instance, to focus on social determinants and to have a lot of creative programs unique to their communities. There are workforce development programs. There are many different types of social programs offered at the health centers, and anything from, you know, pregnancy support to diabetes care to kapuna wellness, you know, dancing, hula, Native Hawaiian healing, many different things going on at the health centers, and that's really facilitated by that flexibility. So I think it's exciting to see that other providers now have opportunities to do that with value-based payment, and to really focus on what's needed to improve care instead of what's billable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we were talking earlier, you mentioned that because of the legacy of the TANF, the TANF program, pre-Medicaid expansion, that you had a heavy enrollment of women and children, that's a cultural and long-standing trend, and I think you had something like 50% of all the deliveries in Hawaii Medicaid were AlohaCare deliveries. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yes. So because we've been in the program for 25 years, we started with families and children, and we actually have families that have been members for decades now, for many generations. So babies that were born on AlohaCare that are now moms, and the whole ohana enrolled. And so what we found is that looking across all the deliveries that were funded by Quest, we had half, and we're not half the total membership. So we're definitely, children are about 45% of our members, and so it's a whole ohana concept, I think, in how we manage the population.
And during that conversation, you also mentioned that I think over half, in fact 2/3 of your board are now women, and almost 2/3 of your executive leadership team are women. Is that the first time that may have been the case at AlohaCare? It's not common.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to me because our leadership looks like our employees, you know, our employee population. So what you find a lot of times is that you might in healthcare have 2/3 of your staff are women across the entire organization, but then only 15 or 20% of the management team are women. And so we actually have a management team that's very representative of our total employee population, and an employee population that's, I think, very representative of the populations we serve in diversity. And that's really exciting.
So how do you think that has manifest or become manifest in terms of culture or operations or any part of what you do? How is it that you have such strong demographic alignment from leadership to workforce to beneficiary community? How does that become apparent in a different kind of care model than might have occurred 30 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, we all focus on workforce culture, and it's really an important aspect of how well an organization is functioning, is to have a culture that people can be successful in. And so I think for AlohaCare, our mission is what brought us all together. By far and away, our employees came to work for us because they wanted to do something good for the community. They wanted to help. And a positive culture is one that allows people to help. It gives them the freedom to solve problems for the member who's on the phone and is having a crisis. It gives people the freedom to innovate, and it encourages teamwork. And no organization is perfect, but that's really what we're trying to do at AlohaCare. We're trying to engage our members by having a workforce that is engaged, a workforce that at the end of the day wants to help and wants to help our members succeed in meeting their own goals, because healthcare is personal. What you define as health and what you want from your health isn't going to be the same thing that I define as health or I want from my health. And so we really have to have that kind of, the listening skills to hear what people want from their health, the humility to focus on their needs versus our own priorities. And our mission is really what grounds us in that and ties us all together.
So you've talked about this, but as a last question, put a finer point on it. What is it like? What is the culture like at AlohaCare? What is it like to go to work there every day and live in that mission space? Give us kind of an encapsulation of that experience.
I think most people say that it feels like a family, that people care about one another, care about the mission. They really want to succeed and make a difference together. I think in Hawaii, there's always this push-pull between wanting to improve and innovate, and also the history, and some, change happens slowly here. And so we really have focused on trying to have a balance of the two, to celebrate history and culture and where we've come from. Last year was our 25th anniversary, and a fun opportunity to do that. And to also be clear about where we're headed and what the real challenges are, and how we can support each other, in advancing those.
Good. Laura Esslinger, I appreciate very much you being here, CEO of AlohaCare. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you, Laura. Good stuff.